New York Mets versus Atlanta Braves. Sunday afternoon at Truist Park carries a certain vibe, kind of like the neighborhood cookout everyone shows up to knowing exactly who is bringing the good stuff. Atlanta walks into this one at 52-35, planted comfortably on top of the National League East, while New York limps in at 36-53, buried in last place and openly sounding like a team getting fitted for a seller's jersey ahead of the deadline. The vibes are not close. Carlos Mendoza is out, Andy Green has taken over as interim skipper, and the entire operation in Queens has a very let's-just-get-this-over-with feel around it. That is not the kind of energy you want to bring into a hostile environment where the home crowd is expecting a Sunday matinee W. Then there is the pitching matchup, which honestly might be the tidiest part of the whole case. Martin Perez takes the ball for the home side, a veteran left-hander who has quietly put together a very solid stretch this year in Atlanta. Here is the kicker though, he has kind of built a mini career off tormenting this particular opponent. He has never lost to New York in his previous appearances against them, and the earned run average in that sample has stayed nice and low. The Mets lineup is basically tailor-made for what he does. They have struggled all year against left-handed starters, and their offense as a whole sits at or near the bottom of the sport in the meaningful team metrics. Now compare that to what the home side has going the other way. Atlanta rediscovered its bats at the perfect moment, launching 4 home runs in Friday's opener and then hanging a 14 spot on Saturday. When this lineup gets rolling, it doesn't politely tap you on the shoulder, it kicks the door in. Even the guys who looked stuck in the mud a week ago are suddenly waking up in time for the holiday weekend. Now, the fair counter, and it is worth respecting, is that Perez himself has had a couple of speed bumps recently, including a start against the Cardinals where 2 swings basically decided the afternoon. Sure, but he is home. He is facing a lineup he has historically eaten for lunch, and the roles here are clearly defined. New York needs a lot to go right. Atlanta pretty much needs to keep doing what it has been doing for 48 hours. As our first pick for this matchup, the Atlanta Braves money line is our full game side pick. Shifting the focus to how many runs might actually cross the plate here, the setup gets even more interesting. Start with the weather report, because it matters more than folks give it credit for. The Cobb County forecast has light rain hanging around the first pitch window, a soft breeze, and mid-80 temperatures. That is not the muggy July swelter that turns lazy fly balls into souvenirs, more of a subdued baseball afternoon where the ball dies a little sooner than the box score expects. Now stack in the offensive personalities of both clubs at this exact moment on the road side of the ledger. The visiting bats have been one of the quietest groups in the entire sport for months, the kind of unit that goes down in order with a shrug and then trots back out for the next inning. Their on-base numbers away from home rank near the bottom of the league, and they have consistently drifted below the number when they leave Queens. They just cannot string together the 2- and 3-run frames that push a game total through the roof. The starter on the New York side is worth a mention here as well. Nolan McLean is coming off 6 shutout innings in Toronto, which was a nice reminder that when his stuff is right, he can genuinely miss bats. Even his rougher outings this year have tended to be spike damage on the home run ball rather than a steady drip of base runners, meaning the damage tends to arrive in tight bursts rather than sustained innings. On the other side of the ledger, Atlanta's late-inning bullpen has been the most miserly group in baseball at protecting leads, giving up well under a run per game after the 6th, which is exactly the profile that squeezes the back half of a game total. Honestly, the counter deserves its moment too. Truist Park in July is not a pitcher's paradise when the ball is carrying, and if both starters wobble or the wind flips and starts blowing out, the number gets uncomfortable in a hurry. Also, once a game slips into a middle relief bracket, weird stuff happens. But even factoring all of that in, the shape of both offenses right now, the rain-flavored forecast, and the bullpen edge on the back 9 all lean toward a game that stays inside the number rather than roaring past it. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Quick commercial break. You know the deal. If you want to get our exclusive best sport picks to take things to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Go check it out. Commercial break over. Now back to the game. Pittsburgh Pirates versus Washington Nationals. Sunday baseball in the nation's capital has a certain weight to it that midweek games just don't carry, and this matinee at Nationals Park feels like one of those quiet inflection points that betting markets tend to reward when you read the room correctly. Washington sends out a right-hander who just turned in the loudest performance of his young career, sitting down 13 Boston hitters across 7 innings with a fastball touching triple digits and a sweeper that looked like it fell off a table. That was less than a week ago, and the version of him that showed up in Boston, all fire and controlled aggression, is the same guy stepping back onto the mound at home in front of a crowd that has been hungry for exactly that kind of edge. Honestly, there's a small crack worth acknowledging here. His suspension appeal saga from that Fenway fracas is still hanging over him, which could mean he's amped and locked in, or it could mean he's a little rattled emotionally. The counter to that concern, though, is a season-earned run average sitting comfortably under 4, plus a track record of pitchers riding the momentum of signature outings straight into their next start rather than sliding backward. Pittsburgh counters with a young righty who has been battling command demons all season, walking multiple hitters in the vast majority of his appearances. And his last time out he ran out of gas by the 7th and got chased in Philadelphia. The Bucks also lost their standout center fielder to a hand injury weeks ago, and that lineup hole shows up in ways that don't jump off a stat sheet, more like a quiet drag on their ability to string traffic together against a starter who's missing bats. Here's the thing, the visitors have found ways to hang around in this series so far, but you're asking a rookie arm to outduel a rested ace with all-star caliber stuff and a home crowd behind him. That's usually the kind of spot where the market underpays the favorite because folks get spooked by recent scoreboard swings, and I think that's exactly what's happening in this one. As our first pick for this matchup, the Washington Nationals money line is our full game side pick. Now let me talk about the scoreboard side of things, because this is where the setup gets genuinely fun. Nationals Park during the first week of July is basically a hitter's amusement park, and Sunday's forecast has temperatures climbing into the mid-90s, with humidity hanging thick and the wind barely stirring the flags in the outfield. You know how a baseball feels when the air is that warm and heavy. It just travels. Routine fly balls suddenly aren't so routine, and outfielders find themselves drifting back to warning tracks they weren't planning on. Both offenses coming into this one ranked near the very top of the sport in runs produced, which is not the kind of number you brush aside when you're trying to figure out how a game will play out on the scoreboard. Washington has been leading Major League Baseball in run production, and Pittsburgh has quietly climbed into the upper tier of scoring themselves. So we're not talking about one loud lineup running up numbers on a quiet one. We're talking about two productive groups sharing a field. The visiting starters' walk issues have been chronic all season, and free passes against a middle-of-the-order group that swings for damage tends to snowball fast into crooked innings. On the flip side, sure, the home ace is coming off a jaw-dropping start where he barely allowed base runners, so you could argue the top half of the ledger stays quiet. Fair point, but here's the twist. The visitors' bullpen has been leaking oil for months with more than a dozen blown saves piling up, and the Nationals' overall pitching staff has ranked among the league's worst in earned run average. Once starters hit their pitch counts and the middle innings relievers start jogging in, that's where run environments tend to explode in a hurry. The recent series pattern backs this up too. Friday's opener produced 14 combined runs and Saturday's game still delivered 8, so this isn't a series that's been sleepwalking through pitchers' duels. Both clubs have gone over their posted numbers close to 60% of the time this season, which is a loud signal when you stack it next to the weather report and the shaky bullpens. Let me put it plainly, the ingredients for a crooked scoreboard are all sitting in the same pot. They're just waiting for someone to turn the burner up. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Baltimore Orioles versus Cincinnati Reds. Something feels different about the way this series has unfolded, and it's the Orioles who look like they've quietly found a rhythm that actually travels. They walked into Great American Ballpark and took the first 2 games without much fuss, stretching their winning streak to 3 and doing it in ways that felt earned, not lucky. Meanwhile, Cincinnati has been stuck in quicksand at home, losing 6 in a row inside their own building and sitting at 40-48 overall with a home mark that just keeps slipping. That's the kind of skid where the crowd shows up late, leaves early, and the dugout body language tells the story before the box score gets a chance to. Then you get to the guy climbing the mound for Baltimore, and honestly, Kyle Bradish has been quietly humming out on the road. Across his last 2 road outings, he's allowed just a single run over 15 2/3 innings, which isn't a fluke number. That's a starter with his sinker doing what it's supposed to and his sequencing on point. On the flip side, Nick Lodolo has been a rough fit for pitching at home this year, carrying a home-earned run average north of 6, and in a park like this one, mistakes tend to escalate in a hurry. Zoom out and the pattern gets even harder to argue with. Baltimore is 6-2 on the road against teams playing sub.500 ball, and Cincinnati absolutely fits that description right now. The bullpen picture leans the same way, with Tyler Wells sliding into the ninth inning role and looking sharp doing it, needing just 10 pitches to close out Friday's shutout. Cincinnati's relievers have been the shakier of the two groups over this stretch, which puts extra weight on their starter to soak up innings he might not have in the tank. Stack the momentum, the road form, the starter matchup, and the state of the two pens, and it's really not a coin flip read. As our first pick for this matchup, the Baltimore Orioles money line is our full game side pick. Now flip the lens over to the run environment, because this one has a lot working in favor of a scoreboard that lights up. Great American Ballpark is one of the friendliest addresses in the sport for hitters, and the numbers back it up with roughly a 10% bump in scoring and a 30% jump in home runs to all fields. The dimensions are cozy enough that even choked-up swings sneak into the seats, and there's really no hiding place out there when a pitcher misses his spot. Both lineups bring pop to the party. Baltimore has been mashing lately, with Pete Alonso sitting on 19 long balls and Samuel Basallo already up to 14 after his big fly on Saturday. Adley Rutschman keeps churning out extra base contact from the middle of the order, and Gunnar Henderson is riding a 10-game hitting streak, the kind of stretch where the ball looks like a grapefruit floating over the plate. The Reds counter with their own thumpers. Sal Stewart, their rookie all-star, leads the team with 37 extra base knocks split between 20 doubles and 17 home runs, and Elly De La Cruz has been swinging a hot bat since he returned from the hamstring issue. The peripheral picture nudges the game the same direction. Cincinnati sits 8th in the sport in walks drawn, which means they run up pitch counts and pile on base runners even on nights the batting average takes a dip. When they push across 5 runs or more, they're a ridiculous 28-7, which tells you the offense has crooked number potential when the top of the order gets rolling. Weather-wise, there's a chance of showers rolling through the afternoon, but the wind is calm, which means no help for pitchers trying to keep fly balls in the yard. And think about it this way, the last 2 games in this very series went from 3 total runs on Friday to 13 on Saturday. And the way the arms line up on paper leans a whole lot closer to the Saturday version than the Friday one. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Minnesota Twins versus New York Yankees. Something feels off in the Bronx, and honestly, it's been that way for a stretch now. The home team has stumbled through their last 9 games with only 1 win to show for it, dragging around like a club that's forgotten what a good vibe in the clubhouse even feels like. Their injury list reads less like a report and more like a small novel at this point, with the face of the franchise still weeks away from swinging a bat live in a game. Their prized offseason left-handed rotation pickup just tossed onto the shelf a few days ago with elbow inflammation, and their big slugging designated hitter still nursing a stubborn calf issue that keeps pushing his return further down the calendar. That's a whole lot of star power sitting on the trainer's table while backups and role players are being asked to hold this thing together on the fly. Even the glove work has gone sideways, with close to 20 defensive miscues piling up across their last 2 weeks of baseball, which is the type of ugly pattern that quietly turns manageable innings into gut-punch ones. The visitors, meanwhile, just rolled into town and dropped a 4th of July haymaker, hanging double-digit runs and a half-dozen home runs on the pinstripes in a wild afternoon at the ballpark. Their all-star righty is the arm handing the ball back to the bullpen for the roadside this time, a legitimate strikeout artist who punched his ticket to Philadelphia this month with top-tier swing-and-miss stuff and a fastball that plays in any zip code. The southpaw staring back at him has already been tagged for 5 or more earned runs in a third of his starts this year, and 3 of those rough ones came in his last 4 turns through the rotation, which is the sort of trend that rarely flips overnight. Factor in a visiting club that has clearly figured out how to hunt pitches in this ballpark over the last 48 hours, and this feels like a real spot for the roadside to close out the series and walk out of New York with the upset. As our first pick for this matchup, the Minnesota Twins money line is our full game side pick. The setup for a shootout in the Bronx checks about every box you would want it to, and the first one is written in the sky. The city has been baking under a nasty heat dome all weekend, with afternoon temperatures pushing well into the 90s and thick, muggy air sitting over the ballpark like a wet blanket. Anyone who has ever spent a July day at this stadium knows the baseball just travels different when the atmosphere gets like this, and the famously short right field porch has a habit of rewarding even miss-hit line drives when the wind and the heat get involved. The shape of this series so far tells its own story too, with Saturday's game cracking wide open into an avalanche of extra base hits and long balls that hinted the pitching on both sides is thinning out at exactly the wrong point in the calendar. The home bullpen especially got put through the ringer in that blowout, cycling through arm after arm and leaving the manager with a shorter leash and fewer trusted options heading into a matinee. There is also that classic getaway day feel to consider, which historically tends to bring looser at-bats, faster hooks, and more crooked innings, all of which help push the scoreboard along. A quick peek at the recent scoring pattern between these two clubs shows a lean toward messy affairs rather than tidy pitcher duels, and even the offense on the home side, thinned out as it is, has still been near the top of the league in runs scored over the full season. Both dugouts have been swinging hot bats, the ballpark itself is a bandbox for lefty pull swings, and the relief arms available to both managers feel a step behind the offenses right now. Everything about this Sunday in New York, from the swampy weather to the tired bullpens to the tone of the last two games, points toward the fireworks arriving a day late. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Chicago White Sox versus Cleveland Guardians. There is a fascinating little dynamic happening in Cleveland this weekend, and it is the kind of setup that quietly rewards the team most people are ready to write off. The Guardians grabbed the first two games of this four-game set on back-to-back walk-off gut punches, the kind of losses that in a lesser division race would send a visiting team spiraling into the airport bar. Instead, Chicago walked into Progressive Field on Saturday, punched right back, and took Game 3 by 2 runs to actually reclaim first place in the American League Central by the thinnest of percentage points. That tells you everything about the psychology on this side of the diamond. This is not a team crumbling under the noise of a hostile crowd on the 4th of July weekend. This is a group that has hung tough in every single game of this series, every meeting decided by 1 to 3 runs, and they are showing up Sunday afternoon with the division standings literally on the line. Now factor in the pitching matchup, which does not resemble the paper mismatch some casual bettors will assume when they see a sub-2-win pitcher's record on the Cleveland side against a Chicago starter with a rougher earned run average. The Guardians' arm carries a win-loss line that has more to do with a lineup that has been the worst hitting team in the American League over the past 30 days than it does with actual dominance on the mound, and Cleveland's offensive problem is not going anywhere. Their most indispensable bat is on the shelf with a Hamady fracture and is not walking through that dugout door on Sunday, and the collection of hitters left behind has been posting bottom-of-the-league contact quality for weeks. Chicago, meanwhile, has quietly climbed into the middle of the pack in on-base percentage this season, and they finally look like a competent big league offense after years of embarrassment. The market is offering plus money on a team that just won the third game of the series and sits in first place, playing a lineup missing its heartbeat, and a pitcher whose record has been dragged into the mud by that same lineup's inability to score. That is a mispriced number if there ever was one, and it is exactly the kind of underdog spot the sharper side of the room lives to circle. As our first pick for this matchup, the Chicago White Sox money line is our full game side pick. Now, shift over to the total, and this is where the environment itself starts stacking bricks on the scoreboard suppression side. The forecast for Progressive Field on Sunday is genuinely ugly for anyone hoping to see the ball fly, with widespread thunderstorms in the area, a high only reaching the upper 70s, and a persistent east-northeast breeze that at Progressive Field pushes directly in on the hitters from the outfield. Balls that leave the barrel at 98 miles an hour on a still July night die at the warning track when the wind is punching them back like that, and this is a ballpark that already carries a run environment slightly below league average and a home run factor that meaningfully suppresses cheap fly ball damage. On top of that, look at what this series has actually produced when you strip out the walk-off theater. Game 1 was 5-0 before the 9th inning happened. Game 2 was a 2-2 ballgame into the 10th. Game 3 finished at 3-1. The narrative sold this weekend as fireworks, but the actual game state through 9 innings has been low-scoring, grinding, one-run baseball, and the head-to-head history at Progressive Field backs that up with 6 of the last 8 meetings between these clubs and Cleveland staying beneath the number. Both bullpens have been genuinely stingy in this series specifically, with the Cleveland relief corps posting a stretch of scoreless work in extended action, and the Chicago pen has been mostly reliable outside of the 2 9th-inning meltdowns that decided games 1 and 2. Add in a Sunday afternoon getaway day rhythm, potential rain delays that force early hooks and quick pace changes, and the fact that neither offense has strung together crooked number innings in this series without benefit of an extra frame, and the projected total looks a full run too generous for the conditions on the field. This is a spot where the weather, the ballpark, the injury profiles, the recent scoring pattern, and the historical trend at this exact venue all point the same direction, and when that many arrows line up, you follow them. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.